Hi there, and welcome to Coffee with Phil, where our goal is to help you live a life of purpose on purpose. Walking with God sounds easy, but how many of you know it never follows the script you prepared? In this podcast, Phil shares stories from his personal journey in the hopes that his experience, the good, the bad, and the ugly, will help you as you walk with God on your own journey. Grab your coffee and enjoy this practical and personal episode with your podcast host, Phil Strong.
Well, good afternoon, loyal listeners. Hello, and welcome. It's great to be hanging out with you today. Having a work from home day today, getting some stuff done, having some meetings. And I've got to tell you, I've done something really risky this week. It's true. I've done something really risky, gone out on a limb, exposed myself in a place of vulnerability, and I am okay. I'm pleased to tell you I'm okay. Look, what happened over the weekend is high consumption by quantity of coffee beans, and the roaster had completely I was roasting coffee beans for high consumption with a large group of people, and I ran out of green beans. I had decided not to take a backup bag of beans, and this is the crisis and the drama that goes on in my life, seriously. But here's the risk. We decided to buy beans. That's right. And look, heaven forbid, I was looking for a roaster that I'm familiar with, and they weren't there. They just weren't there. And so I had to buy beans. I chose to buy beans from a coffee roaster called Volcanic Coffee out of Taupo, New Zealand. I took home half a kilo, and I'm like, man, I'm living on an edge here. I'm living on edge. But I have to tell you, I am very pleased. Back home now after a week away. I've still got the dregs of those beans in the grinder, and am pleased to say I am really enjoying it. So look, when you go out on a limb, sometimes it works out for you. And perhaps that's a good segue into today's topic on the podcast. We're here, and this is Coffee with Phil, episode 95. And when I look back through the topics, the list of headings in the podcast, there is such a diverse range of content that we've wandered through this year. I've shared a whole bunch of my life with you, and hopefully in a way that makes faith real. There's no point talking about faith if you're not going to live faith. And so the bits that I share are really designed to encourage us all to walk in faith. Coffee with Phil, and so you get to have coffee, I get to have coffee, and we get to hang out. I've considered rebranding the podcast. Originally, when I set out to do this, I was having coffee with other people and doing interviews. But it got really difficult to organise, coordinate, and manage a schedule with the kind of people I wanted to interview, particularly because I do this in my spare time. So anyway, now it's me talking with you and sharing coffee with you. But I did consider rebranding to Faith with Phil. So I don't know what you think about that, but if you've got an opinion on that, you're welcome to let me know. Drop me a message, give me a shout out, or bump into me if you live in my circle geographically. So should we be having Coffee with Phil or Faith with Phil? And maybe we'll rethink that for the next calendar year as this year races to a close. Anyway, episode 95, the title of this podcast episode is Don't Worship Your Problem. And this was a reminder to me this week as I was lamenting and seeking God in prayer, which I'll share with you very, very shortly. But here's what I would start out with by saying is by way of introduction and to build some context for the journey we're going to go on in the next 20 to 30 minutes. When you're in a pickle, when you're in a problem, when you're in a jam, sometimes it's normal that the drama dominates your focus. And this is what I mean by when you worship your problem, is you make the problem you're facing bigger than the one who might lead you into a solution. We get distracted. It's the devil's number one tactic, is to distract faith-filled believers from the real source of the answer, to focus on the problem, or to focus on him, or to focus on, the work of others around you, instead of focusing on who might bring you into a solution. And of course, in the context of faith, we would say it's the Lord God Almighty who wants to work with us. But how often does that happen, man? We get in a problem, we get into a pickle, as I call it, and the drama dominates. Well, Jesus in Matthew 17, verse 20, he says, look, you can make the mountain move. You can make the obstacle move. You can make the big thing in front of you move. How? You'll remember, I'm sure most of you will remember, if he says you have faith as small as a mustard seed, then ye would say unto this mountain, move, and it shall be thrown into the sea. What's the point there? We've got to focus on the faith rather than the obstacle, because quite frankly, the one in whom you have faith is far bigger than any pickle, or in fact, even a mountain. And there's another angle I want to take on this. It's a little bit of a hobby horse of mine, and no offense intended if this hits you where it hurts. But I want to talk about all those detail-orientated people, all those ones that finicky over small matters, or can't leave something on the bench, or they the dials have to be all pointing in the right direction. Or when they're screwing in a range of screws on a same surface, they've all got to line up. Or they turn a small issue into a big one, and then that person just says something like this. They say, "Oh, it's okay. I'm OCD," and that's used as a justification for behavior or personality traits. There's nothing wrong with being detailed focused, but I get on my hobby horse when someone says this to me. They said, "Oh, I've got OCD. I'm OCD. I just need things lined up." And I'm like, hey, hang on. Do you know what the D stands for in that? And they look at me and they're like, well, yeah. And then they realize, because OCD, the D stands for disorder. And if that doesn't trip them up, then I say to them, well, what does the C stand for? And they work through it in their head and they look at me and they go, because they realize the C stands for compulsive, which is not a healthy attribute. And if that doesn't trip them up, then I say to them, well, just to complete the set, what does the O stand for? And by this stage, they don't like me. So if they're still talking to me, they're going to get rather confrontational, I imagine. But I remind them that the O stands for obsessive, which again is not something to boast about, nor should it be something that you justify. So if someone says to me, it's okay, I do this because I'm OCD, then what they're confessing is that they're willing to allow their trait to be obsessive, their trait to be compulsive, and the restriction of them living under a disorder, they're choosing to make that bigger than the God who made them. And that would be, to me, someone who is worshipping their problem. They're justifying their behavior, albeit a disorderly one. And then there's something else. While I'm on a roll, I may as well just totally wind you up. You're welcome, by the way. I just had my coffee for the afternoon, so I'm fizzing. But I wrote something recently in a piece that I'm working on about how people, when they're speaking in the Bible, the story in Mark chapter 5, Jesus is on the way to heal a young girl. It's Mark chapter 5. And a woman comes through the crowd. She presses through the crowd. For she thinks to herself, if I could just touch the hem of his garment, I will be made well. And we tell this story. And we speak of the woman with the issue of blood for 12 years. And we call her the woman with the issue of blood. I've heard preachers tell the story and point to the power of Jesus, and yet they're still calling this woman the woman with the issue of blood. And I'm sitting there listening, and I'm like, excuse me, this woman is no longer the woman with an issue. She has been healed. She's been set free. Her faith, Jesus said this, her faith has made her well, that she can go in shalom and peace and fullness and wholeness. So why do we still keep calling her by her historical drama and issue that plagued her for so long when she's been set free? And while I'm on that hobby horse, the other one that preachers often do is they talk about the lame man at the gate beautiful in Acts chapter 3. And I'm like, well, read past the first verse, guy. You know, like this guy is dancing. The man is leaping at the gate beautiful. He's dancing with joy because Jesus healed him. And even the Pharisees couldn't deny that he once was the lame man at the gate beautiful, but that he is no longer the lame man at the gate beautiful. And sometimes I think we just use our history or our weakness or our issue as a label, and we wear it with pride. It's like, hey, I've got a disorder. You should love me. And Jesus is like, man, I do love you, but because I love you, I want to set you free from it. So we've got to stop wearing our issues or our history, certainly the negative history, as labels. I'm just angry. I'm sorry. I'm just an angry person. I'm sorry I reacted that way. No. Fix your anger. Submit it to Jesus and allow him to help you by healing you. So what am I saying? Don't worship your problem. Now, I'll just climb off my hobby horse for a little bit. Might need to take a chill pill. But this really became personal for me this week. I had a couple of days by myself seeking the Lord, which I absolutely value. Every time this happens, I make room for it. My family grants me room for it, which I really appreciate. And I often will put myself to bed late at night, and I'll be so thankful in my prayers. Lord, I thank you that I get to do this. I thank you that I can have this time. Well, so this is the context, right? I'm by myself and I'm waiting on the Lord. And I call this my climb the mountain time. As if you're a regular listener of this podcast, then in this last season, you'll know that I've been doing quite a bit of this lately. Getting away up the mountain to spend time with the Lord. And I don't climb a mountain because that sounds like hard work. I like to stay at home. I like to have the internet, and I like to have a warm, comfy bed. I like access to food that's in the fridge. So it's not about climbing a mountain for me, literally. It's about figuratively, like Moses, climbing up the mountain to be with the Lord face to face. And so I use this time to commune with him, to fellowship with him, to worship him, to glorify him, and to hear from him. So this week, I'm waiting for answers. And the reason I wanted to tell this story is because I figured there's some people out there listening to the podcast. Maybe you're still waiting for answers. Maybe you've got some questions that you really would love the Lord to answer for you. Maybe, like me, you're looking for some guidance on some decisions you're making. Those are the kind of revelation or answers that we truly should get a lead from God on. And perhaps you're waiting for the mountain to be moved. Maybe you've got a major obstacle in front of you. Maybe there's a breakdown in your world that is not right, and you're wanting it fixed and you're seeking God. Or maybe you're waiting for healing. Or maybe you're waiting for provision or a new job or a spouse, and you're waiting. And this was the space I was in. This is where I was at the beginning of this week, and I'm seeking God, and I'm putting myself in the place where I might hear from God. You know, I love the concept comes to me from the book of Exodus, where Moses is called up the mountain by God to meet with God for the revelation of God. And so I've taken it upon myself to find room for that in my life. And as I'm spending this time, I'm not getting a lot, to be honest. I'm seeking God, and I'm laying down things that I might be holding on to, and I'm making sure my heart's pure, and and I'm genuinely, wanting to be led by God. And in this, I was kind of like, well, is there an obstacle? Is there a mountain I need to move? And I felt like the Lord remind me of a song that deeply impacted me in 2009. In 2009, I was also in a waiting season. I was waiting for answers. I was waiting for revelation. I was waiting for God to remove obstacles. I was waiting for provision and leading and deep inner healing. I'm waiting for all this, and I'm living in a strange place, and I've got nowhere for my family to live. But the church that we were attending had a gymnasium. So I'd go and I'd have a workout in that gymnasium because it didn't cost me. The gym was free. And I would put my earphones in my ear. And in those days, you still had to plug those into your phone or your iPod, as the case was. And this song, we'll put the link in the show notes. It's an oldie. Obviously, this is a story that's 15 years old now. A Christian artist by the name of John Waller. And he wrote the song While I'm Waiting. And if you're really old like me, you might remember the movie Fireproof. So this song featured in the movie Fireproof. And if you click the link in the description, it'll take you to the music video, which includes clips from the movie. The thing the Lord was reminding me of as he reminded me of this song is in the chorus of the song, the artist sings, I will serve you while I'm waiting. I will worship while I'm waiting. And I'm going to tell you what happened in 2009 at the end of the episode. But for this moment, it was the second line of the chorus that really struck me. The Lord reminded me of the song, and I know the words well because I listen to it a lot. I will worship while I'm waiting. And I felt like the Lord was saying to me, take your eyes off what you need and commit your focus to me. The best way that you can do that is to come into a place of worship. And so I put everything away and just got in a space with music. For me, it's music that leads me in this, and I just use our Zion Media playlist, our YouTube playlist, and I use that for musical worship because that's my jam. You might have a different form of music or worship, but that's my jam. Anyway, so the Lord said to me, "Come into a place of worship," because I'm not worried, but I wanted to be certain that I was doing the right thing. And I felt like the Lord say, I don't want you to do anything except seek me. And so I was like, okay, well, at least I got something. So I put everything away and I put my energy and my attention into seeking him in worship. And I had a wonderful, wonderful few hours as I was doing that this week. And then I'm in my Bible readings. I've been in 2 Chronicles this week, and I found this story, and it kind of makes sense in the context of what I'm trying to share with you here. Is this idea that we must not worship our problem, and the way not to worship the problem is to worship God. Okay, so I hope that's the punchline. And if you leave me at this moment in the podcast, then you've got the deal. But I want to tell you about these two kings, well, this one king who had two different confrontations. So in 2 Chronicles chapter 16, we've got King Asa, A-S-A is his name, King Asa, I suppose that's how you say it, Asa. King Asa is the king of Judah. And it says in 2 Chronicles 16 that the king of Israel came up against him and was going to fight him. They were on the borders, and he wouldn't let anyone in or out of the nation of Judah. And so what it says in 2 Chronicles 16, so let's just be really clear. This king is in a pickle. He's got an obstacle, he's got a challenge, he's got a problem, there's a drama, and it dominates his focus. So what it says here is he says, King Asa brought silver and gold from the treasuries of the house of the Lord and of the king's house. He took all the goodies from God, and he sent them to the king of Syria, who's a foreign king, not even one of God's people. And he says, look, I've sent you this gold, now come and help me. And so the king of Syria is like, well, you can actually buy my services for that much gold and silver, and I'm on my way. And he came into a partnership with the king of Syria and the king of Judah, and they attacked. All right, and so it drove the king of Israel away. But listen to this. This is what caught my attention, because the prophet, or the seer, Hanani, came along, and he said this to the king. I mean, like, he's calling it a spade a spade. He says, because you have relied on the king of Syria and have not relied on the Lord your God, therefore the army of the king of Syria has escaped, because they're actually enemies, right? And then he says this, were not the Ethiopians a huge army with many chariots? And yet then you relied on the Lord, and he delivered them into your hands. For the eyes of the Lord run to and fro throughout the whole earth, to show himself strong on behalf of those whose heart is loyal to him. Now, you might have heard that verse quoted. For the eyes of the Lord run to and fro throughout the whole earth, to show himself. God wants to show himself strong on behalf of those whose heart is loyal to him. So what I'm suggesting to you in this passage is King Asa is in a pickle, and he gives his gold to Syria and makes Syria his redeemer, his salvation. And God's like, I'm not happy because you didn't look to me. Now, this is particularly interesting, and I just want to highlight this. This is not meant to be a sermon, but look here, he says, were not the Ethiopians a huge army? And so if you're going to look at your Bible, it's possibly on the same page, or if you're clicking like I am, it's 2 clicks back in 2 Chronicles 14. So only 2 pages. And I want to show you, it's the same guy. It's King Asa. And he comes in as the king, and it's quiet for 10 years, and he does what is good, and this is all awesome, right? And then it says, halfway through, it says, then Zerah the Ethiopian came out against them with an army of 1 million men and 300 chariots. And King Asa, he doesn't have that many. He says earlier on the page, it says he had an army of 300,000, right? So he's got way less than Ethiopia. And he goes out there. But look, I want to show you what he did the first time he bumped into a pickle. He goes out there into the valley, sets up his army in the valley. And then he says this. He cried out to the Lord his God, and he said, Lord, it is nothing for you to help, whether with many or with those who have no power to help. Help us, God, O Lord our God, for we rest on you, and in your name we go against this multitude. O Lord, you are our God. Do not let man prevail against you. What a prayer. Man, if we would pray that prayer when we're facing an obstacle, when we're in a pickle, we're stressed, we're waiting, we're lacking faith, we're lacking strength, we're lacking answers. If we would pray that prayer, then perhaps what happened for King Asa would happen for us, because it says right after that prayer, the Lord struck the Ethiopians and they fled. And they were overthrown and they could not recover, for they were broken before the Lord. And God's people carried away very much spoil, because the fear of the Lord came upon the region. Oh my gosh. And there was look, the Bible says exceedingly much spoil, meaning treasures that comes to them. What's my point? I'm contrasting between the 2 situations of the same guy, King Asa. So in 2 Chronicles 16, He freaks out because of the pickle he's in, and he uses gold to buy his way out of trouble. And the Lord is not happy, and the Lord reminds him earlier. He had relied on God's strength, and he had seen God deliver him from his enemy. Why? Because he wasn't worshipping the problem, the million soldiers that were facing him. He was worshipping God, and God acted on his behalf, because the eyes of the Lord rove to and from on the earth, searching for a person whose heart is dedicated to him. So that's what I want to share with you today. Now, I promised you I'd come back to 2009. What happened? So I'm working out in this gym, right, in this church. And we're in a pickle. We're in a bind. We need God to lead us and provide us a place to live. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. And so I'm going to have this workout in the middle of the day, and I've got my earpods in, on my buds with the, you plug into your iPod as it was, and I'm playing this song that I said to you before, like John Waller's song, While I'm Waiting. And the first line of the chorus is, I will serve you while I'm waiting. So as I'm lying on the bench, I'm doing bench press, and I've got the weights, and I'm pushing, and I'm like, Lord, I'll serve you while I'm waiting. I'll worship while I'm waiting. I'll serve you while I'm waiting. And I sat up off the bench, and I looked at the wall, and there's a sign on the wall, literally like a poster, and it says, want to serve God? ? And I'm like, I was just praying that I was willing to serve God. And it said underneath, work in the kitchen. I was like, what? And so I rang. There was a number to ring, and I rang the lady, and I said, I've been asking the Lord how I could serve him, and I saw your poster in the gym. And can we meet? So we met at the church foyer, and I volunteered in the kitchen while we lived there. And I volunteered to serve the church while I was waiting for God to move. And I don't have time to tell you all the details, but through serving in that church, I got to tell my story about why we were there, and what our family history was, and what we were working through. And this story is actually fully detailed in my book, Building a Strong Family. Just go to Strong Family, the website strongfamily.co.nz, and you'll find that book. But the point is, I took my eyes off what I needed. I took my eyes off my problem, and I chose to serve God while I was waiting for him. I was committed to waiting for him, and I chose to take my attention off the problem. I chose not to worship the problem, but to worship him by serving in this case. And will you believe, the short answer is, through serving in that kitchen, one of the ladies I was working with, I was telling her the story because she asked, she said, tell me your story. And she said, wow, she said, you're looking for a house to live in. She says, I think our apartment is the house for you. God has made it empty, and it is ready for you. And would you believe, an apartment on the 3rd floor of this building overlooking the ocean, the Gulf of Mexico. Oh my gosh, how beautiful was that? So here's the deal. Is there an area in your life where you have an obstacle or a problem? Are you waiting for answers? Are you waiting for deliverance? Are you waiting for provision? Are you waiting for guidance? Don't worship your problem. Don't create a false identity out of your problem and wear it like a badge. Just get your attention on God. And the easiest way to do that, like I tell you I did this week, is to put everything aside and say, God, I'm going to worship. And I'm going to worship you because you deserve it. Not because of what you're doing. I'm going to worship you because you deserve it. Because you're worthy of all praise and you're worthy of all honor. And even if I don't get the answer to my problem, it doesn't matter, because I'm choosing to worship you in the midst of this place I'm in. So let's be people who don't worship our problems. Let's be people that don't make idols out of our obsessions or our disorders. Let's be people who live in faith and confidence and pray as King Asa did. I'm going to read it to you as I close. This is the prayer that I hope rests in your heart and comes out of your mouth. Lord, it is nothing for you to help, whether with many or with those who have no power. Help us, O Lord our God, for we rest on you. And in your name we go against this multitude. O Lord, you are our God. Do not let man prevail against us. Now I pray that that speaks to your heart, that it builds faith in you, that makes life real and your faith real, and your victory come by the hand of God. Bless you, friends. I look forward to catching up with you sometime soon.